Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Shojo's Bizarre Adventure. It is I, your host, Stella Luna.
And I'm Lavin. You said hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. I got a bone to pick with you all. No, I don't. I don't have a bone to pick with you all. Before we really start this episode, I wanted to make some stuff clear. We want to make some stuff clear. Okay, because I think some people misunderstood some stuff with the last episode, and weren't really listening. So here's the thing. Start out with, I do not agree with what Nijisanji did. I don't.
Neither of us did. Like,
No.
we were very clear that we were critical about them as a company.
Yes, I do not agree with them putting out the statement, the termination of Selen Tatsuki, the way that they did. I do not agree with them with the follow-up necessarily as well. And I just did not agree with that. And I pretty sure I said last episode too, I did not agree with how they even did it with Zion as well. That even when Zion got terminated, I did not agree with how the company went about it, because guess what? They did it the exact same way both times.
Yeah,
So,
they did.
I'm going to throw that out there for you all, because I feel like people just did not understand that. The other thing I want to make clear too is that if my wording for last episode where I said Selen deserved to be fired, that wasn't necessarily the correct terminology. It was more like Niji had every right to fire her for her breaking contract and for jumping the gun. So it's not that she deserved it, like she's a bad person, she deserves all of this. It was that Niji had every right to, and because she had broken rules within the company and their contract, the termination was justified. But not the way they put out the statement. That was not justification. So put that out there, out of the way. But more happened, of course, right after we put out the episode. Like literally, I think the next day.
Like a day after. Like, it almost seemed like it's just like it was so hard to like promote last week's episode, because then Niji's responses, both from the livers as well as the CEO, happened literally less than 24 hours from when we posted the last episode.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's been just a lot to this story that we can comment on. And
So basically, if you are out of the loop, if for whatever reason your Twitter has not shown you any of this stuff, which I'd be very surprised, because people who were outside of the loop were even seeing this. So Nijisanji had come out with a second statement regarding the termination. It wasn't even just a second statement. It was their CEO saying, like basically talking about like saying he was sorry and how, like it was inappropriate and all of these things. And then also three of the livers, Alira, Vox, and Ike, came forward on Alira's channel to talk about their kind of experiences and their sides of things from people within the company, right? And here's the thing, is if Niji had not made the very first statement with the 3-page documentation that they posted on Twitter, I feel like none of this shit would have happened. None of it would have happened. So I'm going to preference that like Niji is still like largely at fault because they put that out. However, right? When the way that people respond to how Selen got terminated and how kind of everything went down is, I feel like I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. I lost my train of thought here, because there's a lot in my mind. I'm like, I don't even know how to like structure how we're like talking about all of this stuff.
Yeah, well, we mentioned this in last week's episode. The fact that Niji is, in my opinion, overly transparent, and this has been something that even like now all the YouTube lawyers are also commenting on this. Like, it's reached the non-VTuber audience.
Yes.
That's how like serious and big this story has become.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I have noticed that lawyers have mentioned and we mentioned is, if this was an American company, all you would get as like a statement would be, on this day, blank company has terminated blank creator for breach of contract. We thank you for your support. We apologize for any inconvenience. That's it. You will not get a 3-page statement highlighting every single instance that they did wrong.
Yes. Or something that went on within the company.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I feel like, honestly, they should have known a lot better that the Livers audience is going to have their back no matter what.
Yes.
That's like Parasocial Relationship 101.
Yes.
They have this attachment to their favorite creator, and they will back that creator till the end, pretty much.
Well,
and they kind of completely forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing too, right? It's like I will say that, like, I do not agree with them having the Livers come out and say stuff, because they were the ones who kind of got themselves in the mess in the first place. Not the Livers, Niji, right? However, right, I feel like I can understand why the Livers want to defend themselves, because once we talked about the bullying, once the bullying came into play, everyone was trying to figure out who it was, right? But you have to remember, I'm pretty sure in the or in the document that Selen said that there had been harassing and bullying, but they did an internal investigation and found nothing, right? And so, you know, the Livers wanting to come out and protect themselves or protect the other Livers, I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But at the same time, I'm like, I felt like it added fire to,
it did,
you know, like fuel to the fire. However, if you watched it, right, and keep an open mind, right? They shared some screenshots of just a few screenshots of the incident with Last Cup of Coffee, right? Where the manager reached out and was like, okay, we will, you know, look into it, or we will like let's get this approved. And then she jumped the gun. She posted it. The manager was like, hey, you didn't get this approved. Like, you know, like we have a problem with this. Just get this taken out. And I think it was because of Mista and Nina being in it. And they were like, hey, just get this, you know, taken out, you know, like contact the artist, get that taken out. And then it's good. It's good to go. Right. But she did not take that step, and she went ahead and posted it anyways. Right. And then the manager was like, hey, we need that taken out. I'm going to private it for right now. But once that gets taken out, we can re-upload it and it will go back up. Right. Whereas like on Twitter, she basically made it sound like it's never going back up. It's over. It's over. Like, I spent all of this money and they're not going to let me push it back up, which already tells me there is some kind of lie or miscommunication, right? Of something, right? There has been, now this is speculation, right? I don't want to be like she does or does not have this, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it, and that apparently she used to have this on her PL account about how she has BPD, right? Borderline personality disorder, right? So if we take this into account, right, of she has some mental disorder, right? Both things can be true at the same time, right? Two things can be true at the same time, right? To her, like I believe I believe Doki, it's Selen Doki. We all know. We all fucking know.
Yeah.
I believe that she fully felt like she was being bullied and harassed in her own eyes. But does that mean she was actually, or was it Livers being like, hey, did you get this approved? Did you, like, looking out for her, right? But she feels like, you know, like everyone's ganging up on her, right? And being like, they're telling me what to do, and they're harassing me and bullying me, right? But in her eyes, she could really feel like that, right?
Well, even if, like, okay, let's say that let's take the disorder out of it. Like if she was in a mentally rough place, like depression or just an extreme amount of stress.
Yes.
And you're getting someone like your coworkers telling you like, hey, like, did you get this proof? Like you'll just start feeling if it's multiple people that they're all ganging up on you.
Yes.
Even if like your superiors went up to you and wanted to discuss like, hey, how are you doing? You kind of like coming from the higher ups, it's going to feel like, I don't know, like almost like your parents talking down on you if you did something bad.
Yeah.
So like, I can understand how maybe she perceived it as bullying and harassment when maybe it wasn't exactly that. Well, and again, we don't know exactly what happened and what was exchanged between two parties. But
like I said, this is all just like speculation. This is kind of like we're talking about all the nuances that could happen. Right? Yeah. And like let me give you guys an example. So, you know, I've talked about this you know, like on my own channel, I've probably talked about it sometime on the podcast. You know, I have ADHD. And one of the things that especially ADHD women deal with is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Right? So anytime you feel like you could sit there and you could feel like, oh my God, this person's so pissed off at me. They're so mad. Like they like if something's a little bit off and you just like start being really upset over it. Right? There's been multiple times where I thought someone was really upset at me and they really weren't. Maybe they were just having a bad day, you know, but it wasn't directed towards me, but I feel like they hate me. Right. And I literally start crying because of it. Like I cry very often when I think people are upset with me, especially people I care about. Right. But as someone who is an adult, you know, I can't just sit there and just let my feelings and my emotions, you know, like eat me up. I can't let them control me. Right. Because like even though I have this disability, I still have to work through it like an adult, right? Like that's the thing is like I have to work through it because I am an adult, you know, and I can't just kind of fall back on that, right? And so, you know, with you know, Selen feeling potentially like, oh my God, I like, you know, like everyone is out to get me, right? She might really feel like that, but that might not be what's actually happening in that situation, which again, that's a communication issue. Because she didn't communicate with people about like how they were making her feel. And especially since a lot of these people were supposedly her friends, right? Is like, that's a communication that you have to take, you know, and, you know, from what it sounds like is that the Livers really were genuinely concerned because they know if she kept breaking the rules, maybe eventually she'd get terminated, you know? And I would be like him, like if I had a friend who kept breaking rules, like I had an ex-boyfriend who kept breaking the rules, like being late to work all the fucking time. And I told him, I'm like, if you keep being late, you're going to be fired. And then he got fired. You know, I mean, and he got mad at me because I told him what to do. And I was like, I'm literally looking out for you. You know? And because like in someone's mind who is mentally unwell, things can feel like the end of the world when they are very small things. You know? And again, like we're talking from like, we're not sitting here trying to defend Niji. Like we're not being like, no, Niji did nothing wrong, because we absolutely think so. But I think there's there's a huge disproportionate amount of hate that's happening to not only just like Niji, but specifically the Livers, you know, where people are acting on their own emotions rather than thinking about the situation and looking at things at different points of views and different nuances.
Well, I think the majority of last week's episode, we really went hard at like trying to convey the fact that there are cultural differences.
Yes.
And people are not taking that into consideration at the moment. And it is, I think, what ultimately backfired for Nijisanji. That they treated the what should be an international branch exactly the same as, almost, well, not exactly the same. They almost treated it as an extension of the JP brand by running it exactly the same. Yes. Which, I mean, now we're in this mess because of that.
Well, because, and then on top of that, like, people kept trying to, like, come up with all of these conspiracy theories, right? And here's the thing. It's like, yes, other livers have left, right? That doesn't mean that they hate it there, right? That they hated it or they hated their experience. Maybe they wanted to move on. Maybe they feel like, you know, they've outgrown the place, or maybe they just don't work for corporate setting in general. Because corporate VTubing, corporate anything is going to be vastly different than being an indie, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I feel like common sense and real life, just real life has not entered the picture for a lot of people.
Yes.
Because it's literally the same thing anywhere. You can criticize the crap out of American corporations. I mean, you're seeing a massive layoffs from like the tech companies.
Yeah.
And are they caring about their like employees' well-being and mental health? No.
Oh,
they're
absolutely not.
laying like a ton of people off right now.
But like, who was it? Whoever.
Discord has laid people off. Twitch, Microsoft, Google, like anyone who overhired during lockdown has laid off almost everyone from that period.
And that's the unfortunate part is like, I feel like we're not looking at this. We're looking at this so unfairly because like everyone is so attached to their feelings for these specific people, these specific livers, right? That they're not able to step back and look and criticize fairly, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing is like I have a problem with is that you guys should be criticizing. That is, you should be criticizing, but what you should not be doing is attacking, because the way that you guys or not you, I don't know if like not people specifically listening, but like, you know, like the way that people have attacked, it's interesting because people are attacking Alira and they're not attacking Vox or Ike, but Alira very specifically, like, yes, they are attacking Vox and Ike, but like nowhere near the amount that Alira is getting it, right? Because Alira chose to host it on her channel. And I'm like, is it a tad bit of misogyny? Probably. I'm not gonna lie. Probably. Yeah. But like, I'm like, there in no world. Listen, I need you to listen to me. In no world is it appropriate or okay to go like for you to make assumptions that Alira was the one bullying Selen, and that the punishment of that is making revenge porn of somebody. In no world, that's fucking bonkers. That's crazy. To be like, oh, well, you know, that's like saying like, because like Taylor Swift recently had AI porn made of her, right? And it's like, oh, well, she's a billionaire, so she deserves this. No, she still has her own body autonomy that she has every right to, right? And being like, well, that's the punishment is like, whoa. That's wildly not okay, right?
Well, it's the same thing. Like, I feel like a lot of Selen's audience has been very concerned about like her mental well-being, especially since she has been so open about her attempts at suicide.
Yes.
But that doesn't warrant people to, and this is, I mean, not a handful of people, it's hundreds of people going and sending death threats to Niji livers.
Yes.
You can't be like concerned about someone and then like
you can't be you can't be fucking sitting here and telling me being like, oh well, they tried to kill themselves. They tried to kill themselves and then turn around and do shit that would make someone kill themselves. You cannot do that. Like, it doesn't matter because like it can't. There is it makes me mad because it's like it's very much. It's the same rhetoric. It's the same thing that fucking pro-lifers have. They're like, but what about the baby? Oh, I know. We could stop abortions by making a death penalty for the fucking mothers. It's like the same thing.
A lot of people thinking with their emotions instead of thinking rationally. And I mean, this doesn't excuse them, but I feel like a lot of it is coming from like younger adults and people without like life experience.
Yeah.
Because I know like in the last episode, somebody thanked us for being the sad adults that are looking at this from like, I don't know, just looking at the situation in a very realistic way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're older. We have seen, this is nothing new. Like I was talking to Stella before the episode, like this reminds me of the YouTube MCN, the multi-channel network collapse of like a decade ago.
Yeah.
Where you had all these agencies that were, you know, hiring what used to be like YouTube indies to represent them. Obviously, you also had, although this was mostly American companies, you still had a hierarchy. Whoever was earning more money would get a lot better management, better opportunities.
Yeah.
And those who had less subscribers, brought the company less money, obviously did not have the same opportunity.
Yeah.
And when those MCNs collapsed, a lot of those creators were not paid fairly. Some of them till this day were still not paid because a lot of these MCNs just did not have the money to pay the creators. So they lost on their money. You also had a humongous story a decade ago, pretty much, with My Damn Channel and Grace Helbig, who used to be, I mean, she still makes content, but I mean, back then, like her sketches within My Damn Channel were the most popular ones.
Mm-hmm.
And they claimed ownership of her name, her content, and she had to start a brand new channel and start from scratch, basically.
Yeah. Well, it's funny
so
because
this type of mistakes have been seen before. It's just, it's finally happening to Japanese agencies.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing is like, I will always say, like something I've talked about with Mr. Underhill is that Japan seems to be one of those places where like technologically it's very advanced. Socially, it's very behind.
Yeah.
And of course, like the reason that we can sit here and criticize and be upset is because they do have a Western branch, right? Like even if you like when it comes to Japan and like how they want to run things, I'm not going to tell them what to do. Like I'm not going to tell them what to do. If the Japanese people are trying to change things, I will support them. Right. But I am not going to interject my own feelings and thoughts into it because it's not my place. It does not affect me. But it does affect me when affect me and people I know when it is the EN branch and they should be playing by our rules. Right. Like, Connor, CDawg Connor talked about the situation a little bit. He didn't say who or what exactly, you know, because he's much larger than a lot of people, you know, like a lot of like even just us, obviously. Yeah. But like he said the exact same thing as us. He literally like if you go to that clip, which we'll probably link it down below. Yeah. He literally says the exact same thing as us. And the reason like it's really important to listen to people like us or Connor when you're trying to come up with your opinion on something is that a lot of times we are going to have like we have the insight, right? We've been doing this for a long time. Like yes, we might not have as many followers as Connor, but like, you know, like if Connor is saying the exact same thing as us, then we definitely know what we're talking about. And he works with Japanese companies. You've worked with Japanese companies actually.
Yep.
And so understanding that culture and understanding like what is actually wrong here instead of just using our emotions and feelings to discern like, it's wrong, it's bad, because like people were praising Niji for when Zion was terminated. But now that it's someone you like, you're like, I don't like that very much. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, and that's why you need to stop using your emotions when you are like looking at these situations and start looking at it from a more just like unbiased, like take a step back approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you are someone who is upset right now about what happened to Selen and not saying you had to like Zion, right? Like I still did not like what Zion did in the company, but I literally said I did not agree with it when it happened, when they released the stuff on Zion. But if you were jumping for joy for Zion and the way that she was terminated and then are upset about how they terminated Selen, you are just a hypocrite. You're not a hypocrite, but you're being hypocritical. I don't want to call anyone names. I'm sorry. I apologize. But you are being hypocritical because these are situations that are essentially the same thing. They are the same thing, right? And this is why Niji, I feel like, was like fucking. They just were. It came out of nowhere for them. They don't understand why everyone was upset because they did it before. And no one said a damn thing. Except, I mean, the Zion fans were upset. They were for sure upset. But they were upset because they were like, oh, she didn't say anything that bad. I can't believe she didn't say it. She just made one rape joke one time. Not that big of a deal. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You know? The other thing that really made me upset was the Scarle stuff. So besides like the screenshots between Scarle and Aster, right? She had kind of disappeared this week, right? And people pointed out that she had like a Kurosanji comment in one of her videos, and everyone's like, oh, they're after Scarle next because she missed her stream and she hasn't said anything and blah blah. And it makes me upset because I'm friends with her. If anyone knows me or even watches Scarle, I pop into her streams a lot. She says hi to me every single time. And she's in my streams and we've been friends for a while, right? Like she is a friend of mine, right? I knew from that, I'm like, I literally told people, I was like, that's not in character. That was an accident. Like that was an accident. She liked Kurosanji. Like that's a pure accident because like, first of all, my girl is not stupid enough to like something like that on the main channel anyways. She's not dumb. She's not a dumb girl. But and most livers would not do it on their main channel. If they really hated the company and really wanted them to burn, we literally saw Zion go into her PL account and like stuff on her YouTube before she got terminated. Right? Like that's usually how it's done, right? I was like, do you guys not see that you guys have been speculating and harassing Scarle's friends and like, you know, Aster, who she is friends with, you've been harassing him. You've been speculating on things. There's a lot. She got dragged into something that she wasn't even a part of, right? She took a break. She just stepped away for a little bit from the internet. And everyone's just like, they're terminating her. And I'm like, they're like, base Scarle for liking Kurosanji. And I'm like, oh my God.
Dude, it's so understandable for the livers to feel overwhelmed. And I know those who have still been streaming have mentioned that.
My boy,
they're feeling
Vanta,
overwhelmed.
Vanta, my boy Vanta, still streaming, going strong. I'm so proud of him. I'm like, you are stronger than me.
Dude, the fact that freaking Kyo was still, you know, trying his best to like wrap up that chapter and just like be there for his fans when obviously like the whole company was, I mean, I'm coming from the perspective of I really enjoy Nijisanji livers, but I will, like we mentioned at the beginning, mentioned last week, very critical of the way they're handling the company and like how they're responding to things. But for the livers themselves, I really enjoy them. I've connected with a lot of them and just like, I find comfort in a lot of those streamers.
Well, see, here's the thing, right? Vanta is my favorite Nijisanji VTuber. He's my liver, right? And like, I know, I'm sitting here and I'm like, Scarle is my friend, right? So there might be bias there, right? I'm admit 100%. There is bias that I'm upset about the Scarle stuff because she's my friend. And like, I hate seeing misinformation going around about her, you know, like I can't stand that. It is something like anyone who sees their friend being abused or whatever would feel the same way, right? But that's the difference. I know her. I am not in a parasocial relationship with Scarle Yonaguni. She's just legitimately someone I know. Not just a parasocial. And I think that's where people get confused, is because they think that they're in these they're friends with these livers. And they're not. Because I understand being protective of your friends. I get that. But you are not friends with the livers. You might be. I don't know. Maybe you actually know them. But like a lot of times.
Yeah, I think maybe there's a handful there are, but for the majority of people, and I mean, I feel like this has been said so many times, but I will say it again. You are not friends. Corporations are not your friends, first of all.
Corporations are not your friends.
And also, the creators that you watch are not your friends either. They can appear as your friends, but that's just your emotional attachment to them.
Yes.
And it's something that, as I've been creating content since 2009, I'm very well aware of that. There's always going to be a parasocial relationship regardless of how much you want to fight against it.
Yes.
But you can't let that attachment, it doesn't give you a duty to go on their behalf and attack other people. Or it's not your duty. Like, at this point in time, what has unraveled between Nijisanji and Doki Bird is something that will have to be handled privately among the legal team or in court. And whatever it happens, this is not for us to to try to resolve.
If you are allowed to also be upset, make it known to Nijisanji themselves, the corporation, you are upset about the situation. The things that you can do as a fan, or if you don't like them, you already didn't like them, and that there's no point. And first of all, I don't know why you're engaging if you didn't even like them in the first place, right? They don't care about the fact that, like, if you're someone who you didn't like Niji in the first place, they don't give a shit about what you think, because you're not the one giving them money. Like, they don't care that you don't like them, right? But for the fans of Nijisanji, if you are allowed to be upset, you are allowed to be upset in the way that they treated somebody, right? You are allowed to be upset. You are allowed to voice your concerns to them, whether it's in email, in comments, whatever. If you don't want to give money to them, don't buy merchandise, right? It's really hard. It is really hard to not buy, or not to support to support livers and not Nijisanji, because they still make money through, and they're not paid salary. That's the thing. Livers are not paid salary. They are paid by percentage.
A lot of people there's just a lot of misinformation.
Yes.
So they're not full-time employees. Yes. They're not part-time employees. They're contract workers, which is pretty standard when it comes to agencies.
It's true. It is actually very true. When it comes to agencies, you are under contract. In a past life of mine, it was under a contract. I had a 1099 as a contractor. So which means that they hired me to play a role, but I was not an employee of this company. Right. And that's a very standard thing for companies to do. And like I said, you can be upset. Like, you can be upset about how they treated somebody. You make that known to them. Leave the goddamn livers out of it. Because they can't, let's be real, they can't really defend themselves. Because the moment they try to, everyone attacked them for doing that. So it's like, what are they supposed to do? Right? Like, what are they supposed to do? You guys would not believe Nijisanji anything, right? So it took one of Scarle's friends, Kruslakron, who is also a friend of mine. He's a very good friend of mine. It took him messaging her and posting those screenshots to be like, hey guys, she's fine. Right? Because I know that, and I saw people being like, well, why didn't Niji say anything about it? And it's like, because you guys would have not believed them. That's why.
Yeah.
Like, there's no winning. There's no winning either way. Like, there's no, like, they could do literally anything. I think that there would be no way for them to win, right? And like, and I will say, because I did see some people thinking that like thinking those shots were fake. No, those are real. Those are 100% real. Like, you're gonna have to trust me on this. Those are 100% real.
Yeah, I feel like the speculation honestly is not helping anyone at all.
Yes. Stop believing 4chan
speculating
all the time.
like who's gonna be next for graduating is not helping. Speculating who's gonna be terminated next is not helping either. Going back and like hyper analyzing content.
God, do you
I've
know
seen a
how
lot
annoying
of that,
it would
especially
be?
for Alira.
Yeah. Like,
it's
I need you
really
to understand
odd.
how weird it is to hyper analyze like that. Because like imagine you're like at work and every customer that ever comes in now is hyper analyzing every little thing that you do. Like every little thing. Would that not be nerve-wracking? Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like the hyper analyzing like past content. For me, this is the first time I've seen it to this extent.
Well, you know what?
Like,
it doesn't surprise me because Nina had a bitch list. So somebody hyper analyzed all of her content and wrote down every little piece of any time she was ever like slightly mean to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. That's real. I'm like, what the fuck? And it's like, okay, because people would get mad, right? They would get mad at like they get mad at people. They're like, oh, they said something to my favorite liver that I didn't like on stream. It's like, okay, well, if they had a problem though, they would talk about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've you know, like literally like example, Evan Nito and I, right? He calls me a fucking bitch all the time. He's like, you fucking bitch. And I'm like, yeah, but we've been friends for like fucking 6 years now, I think. Like 5 or 6 years now. We're friends, right? We're friends, and like if I have a problem with what he does, which I've had problems in the past of what he's done, I will just DM him and tell him that. I don't need followers or people that I don't know coming to my defense for me, you know? If there's a problem, they will deal with it themselves, you know?
Yeah, like the one that I have seen a lot being like super hyper analyzed and it makes me laugh has been Alira's Shojo Rei cover.
Yes!
Which is by Mikito P, first of all. The fact that it was covered a year ago is not like her signaling that she's a bully. It's
That's
not
so
foreshadowing.
weird.
It is her singing that song, which
is a popular song.
If we step back about a year ago, that's when that song was added into Project Sekai, was added to Bandori, was added to other rhythm games. So it was a trending song.
It was a really popular song.
That's pretty much it.
It was.
She did not create it. That's a cover. If you're a Vocaloid fan, it's a pretty popular song.
Yeah. She just wanted to cover it. Like that. I don't know why we're hyper analyzing something like that.
Like a year later, like almost all of like the top comments are people from like this past week. I'm like, come on, like you have that much time to go. It's so
weird. I don't know. I don't have that much time on my hands to go through every single person's VOD and everything they've ever said.
I mean, like I feel like if they're dedicating that much time, I think I mentioned it. I don't know if it was in last week's episode or a previous episode. The people that go out of their way like that I know they're spending hours doing this. You could very much use that time and energy for worthwhile, like, there's a whole, I mean, you could easily dedicate that time and space into creating awareness for Palestine or any other cause that's actually like more important than like someone covering Shojo Rei a year ago.
Yeah.
Like it's
Literally, like there, you could do
ridiculous.
so much more. You could even become a content creator. Like you could sit
You
down,
could,
you could like do
yeah,
a analysis, a psychoanalysis on why Mabel is how she is in Gravity Falls. Like you could literally do
it,
shit like that. You could make so
you
much
can
good
do
content with that power,
you can
but
do
yet
so much with that time instead of like attacking people that first of all you don't even know. Like it's just, I feel like I'm just too old.
I know. I feel like I'm sitting here and
Like I'm just like
I'm a grandma.
I could not care about this in the same way because I know if I were in their shoes, me attacking someone else online is not gonna solve shit.
No.
And that's what it comes down to.
No, it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't solve.
And I know like last week we tried our best to like really emphasize that a lot of this is just us as Western fans not being familiarized with Japanese business etiquette.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of that.
Yep.
We saw it a lot this past week as well, especially when the CEO made his video statement. It makes me embarrassed that people were criticizing the bow.
Yes.
Criticizing the fact that, I mean, it's clear to say that English is not his first language. So I am sure that he was struggling, even though his statement was his statement was scripted. He was reading off probably cue cards or whatever it may be.
That's another thing. People were like, they scripted, so it's not real. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
I'm like, huh? I'm like, you know, the president of the United States like reads a script, right? Like, you know that
everything is scripted.
Everything is scripted, right? Because guess what? Like, yes, we sit here and we talk about, like, we don't have a script. We don't read from a script. We kind of just talk, right?
Yeah.
But that's what podcasts kind of are, right? They just, we kind of talk, right? But I feel like if I had to address something like super important or super serious, right? I am not someone who is capable enough of making coherent and like meaningful sentences that encapsulate everything I need to say, while also not giving like wiggle room for people to misinterpret what I said, because people already misinterpret what we said last week, right? And like and like other things, like there is a misinterpretation that happened about me auditioning for Nijisanji, and the misinterpretation was, oh yeah, so Stella auditioned for Niji and she got pretty far in the auditions. And she was in talks with Nijisanji, but then they came to a mutual agreement that that she didn't fit any of the characters. But what I actually said was, yeah, I auditioned for Niji. They looked at my audition like multiple times, but I never heard anything. And more than likely what happened is I just didn't fit any of the characters. That is so, those are two different statements. Yeah. I have never gotten an email from them. I've just said that like they were looking at me, they were seriously looking at me, but I just might have not had a care. And that was just, we were talking about auditions in general. And that statement, like I was just talking about auditions, and that sometimes they might really like you, but then they're like, but we can't because we don't have a character that fits, because like one of the waves I auditioned for was Triple T. When I look at Victoria Brightshield and Kunai, definitely not Claude because I'm not a dude. When I look at the two female characters, I look at them and I go, I don't think I'd fit them. That's why they looked at my audition like 9 times. I don't fit those characters though. Like what I did in my audition, which I played a character, did not fit those characters. That's okay. That's fine, right? And I was just talking about audition stuff, but they took it as, yeah, she was in talks with them, and they both came to a mutual agreement that she would not fit the characters. And I'm like, that is not what I said.
I can vouch. Like Stella would share like screenshots, like, oh my god, they watched my video again.
Dude, I get so nervous anytime any company watches my video, because I'm like, they saw it. What if they hate me now? And that's not just Niji. I've auditioned for multiple companies, and that's that happens. And here's the thing about companies, right? And I know a lot of people are like, well, why would you want to audition for these things? And it's like, well, to be honest, being an indie is really fucking hard, especially when you don't have like a huge following or a huge like I don't make that much money from VTubing. I make probably like $100 to $200 a month, you know, depending on the month. It's not a lot. Like I make most of my money from rigging, and I don't have enough money to get a manager because I need to be managed. I'm not going to lie. Like I have so much trouble because I have ADHD. I can't take medication. And so I need somebody to tell me what to do sometimes, and it's hard, you know?
Yeah.
And so
because I have seen a lot of people like wonder like why would anyone bother to join an agency, especially after everything that has unfolded. But just because it didn't work for someone doesn't mean it won't work for another person.
Yes.
And I feel like Nijisanji is a good example of that. Like you have the livers that spoke up, livers that even went on Kyo's graduation, kind of explaining that they feel comfortable in working for the corporation.
Yeah.
They earn a good living. They don't feel overworked. They feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But if someone like Kyo wants to pursue other creative endeavors and just stop working for an agency, stop being a VTuber altogether, they have the right to change their mind and, you know, do other things.
Yeah. And we shouldn't be looking at every single graduation as an, oh, Niji did something bad. It's just some people are ready to move on, just like anytime anyone quits, right? Like
any single job. Yeah.
Any single job, right? People quit jobs all the time, you know, and sometimes things are really bad. Right. And kind of, you know, like kind of to go back on what I said earlier about how like Niji had every right to terminate Selen. Like I want to give like an example of like why, like if we're taking out the whole statement stuff, right, and just say a termination in general, right? I kind of want to give an example, right? So I used to do management, which is so funny because like I'm like I need a manager, but like I was a manager at one point, but that's because like with that job I had like certain duties. I also had a boss above me, right, who was managing me. But anyways. And I wasn't a full manager. I was assistant manager. So, but anyways, you know, and I would, so there was this employee we had, and they were kind of the worst sometimes, but they basically, they left work early a few times when they weren't supposed to. So, you know, like when it would be really slow, we would send someone home, right? Usually a manager or a supervisor would send someone home, right? Keep down on productivity. We're slow. We've gotten everything we needed to done, right? Like we just had nothing to do. So send someone home. Most people want to go home early anyways. It doesn't matter, right? Like they can choose whether to stay or not, right? But this employee, God, so they got scheduled the same time for like an hour, like to work an hour with our new person who is brand new, by the way, like literally didn't even know how to run the register yet. And also, I will just say this because like I no longer live here. I worked at a Subway with a drive-through. There's those. They do exist. Yes, they do exist. Oh. I don't live there anymore, so I feel comfortable saying that now. But anyways, so I worked at a Subway with a drive-thru, right? And we had this brand new kid, only there for maybe like two days, right? It might have been his third day, but he had not been trained with the drive-thru yet, right? And it was like, you know, they were working together between 3 and 4. So like the employee that was the bad employee, we're just going to call them Mike. Their name is Mike, right? That wasn't their name, but we're going to call them Mike. And we're going to call the other one Chad. The brand new guy, his name's Chad, right? So it's Chad. Chad is brand new and has not been trained on the drive-thru yet and how to do it and all that. So Mike and Chad were working together. And I remember specifically telling my boss, my manager, hey, I don't think you should have them working together. But he was like, no, it's fine. It'll be slow, right? I'm like, okay. And my boss was on vacation at the time during this week. And so I get there a little later. Like I walk by and it's my day off. And I look in the store because I walk by there all the time. looks like a fucking disaster. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I run in to help them out because it's now like 7:00 at night, right? And it's the new guy, it is Chad and the 2 other employees, right? The 2 other employees that were not Mike. And I'm like, what happened? And basically, Mike was left by himself for a full hour by Chad, Chad was left by himself for a full hour by Mike because Mike was like, it's slow, so I'm going to leave. Without asking a supervisor or asking a manager, right? So Mike just fucking leaves this brand new kid who doesn't know how to work the drive-thru by himself in a Subway. And I'm like, I was like dumbfounded by this because I'm like, so when I worked mornings at Subway, I would do all the prep stuff. I'd be by myself. So I would be making orders through the drive-thru and in front of me in the store by myself. We weren't that busy. It's not that bad. But you know, like if you had 2 or 3 cars pull up, oh my God, that kid's fucked. Right? Like that's you know, and this kid would do this all the time. This Mike kid would do this all the time. He would just leave sometimes early because sometimes the managers let him leave early and he's like, well, it's slow. I'll go home early. That's not how it works. He got fired. He got fired for that. And it's like, but he tried to be like, it was unfair. It was unfair. I got fired. And it's like, no, it's not unfair because you didn't follow the rules. Right? And that's what I mean, right? Had we went, okay, well, every customer that came in was like, this is where it would be wrong, is every customer came in and were like, yeah, you remember that guy Mike? Yeah, we fired him for doing, like, he broke this rule and this rule and that rule and this rule and that rule. That's highly inappropriate, right? But we still had we had the right to fire him because he broke our rules. I know that was such a long tangent. I'm so sorry.
No, but like this whole situation is basically that, just, you know, on a much larger scale. And I know people were like trying to defend the termination, but if we just look at separate the termination from like your attachment to the B2.
Yep.
It is, I mean, they laid out too much.
Yep. And that's why I gave this example, was to try and it's like make it something that is the same thing. Yeah. But make it more like digestible and more like understanding, to remove like the personal biases you have. Yeah. Right. And I
feel like another thing that I saw a lot of this past week, especially after the statement from Vox, and specifically Vox, was people calling him out for being the favorite. And you know, you could also see the favoritism, which we did talk about in last week's episode, with the way Nijisanji treated Selen. Because, as we saw with Sion, she was not up in the Nijisanji hierarchy.
No.
So the fact that she was brand new, she messed up a few times. She was let go much sooner than Selen was.
Yes.
Selen was higher up in the hierarchy, had more seniority in the company, was also more profitable as well. So they did keep her for much longer. I think that's a mistake on their part, because if she had breached contract before, should have been terminated before.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and
they can't really do anything now because like
yeah, well, now their favoritism is now biting them in the ass.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the
again
thing.
Just going back to like, they can't run an international branch exactly the same way as a Japanese.
Yes. You can't. You just can't. Like, you just cannot do it the same way. Because and I think like what really solidifies it and like why that they did it is really when you look at the audiences, like the JP fans versus the EN fans, because the JP fans were like totally like, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
they look at
I
the
saw,
EN
I
fans.
translated a lot of the Japanese like comments, and they're like, you know what, we disagree with this, but we're still going to support Niji.
Yeah.
That was kind of like dope.
And then a lot of them were confused on why EN fans were so
Mm-hmm.
mad, right? And
Yeah.
I think that really is like the kind of that's the proof is in the pudding, right? Like
Yes.
right there, like in our statements of like they are a Japanese company and they are going to act like a Japanese company, and that as EN fans, if they are going to be a company in the West, they need to be by our standards, you know, and that's
Yes.
something that
Mm-hmm.
we should be telling them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I am willing to you know, give Niji some forgiveness if they take the steps that are needed to be a company in the West, right?
Yes.
And considering that we had and I think I said that last week, but now we had the CEO say, you know, like talk and make that video, and we've seen some job listings as well.
Yes.
I because we knew about the job listings before he even made, like, they put out that video, which tells me they are listening.
Yes.
They are listening. And that's good. And that's what we want, right? Because I'm not going to lie, I don't really care too much about the company as a whole as I do the livers. Like, I care about the livers. Like, I do care about, like, yes, Vanta is my Oshi. He's my number one. He is my Oshi. And I want him to do well. He hasn't even been with Nijisanji for a full year, you know?
Yeah.
And I want him to succeed. I want to see my friends succeed, right? I want to see my friends in Niji succeed as well, too. And I don't like seeing this happen to them, right? And so I'm willing, if they are willing, if they are telling me, right, that the company, like, they are not upset, they are upset, but they're not like angry, right? They're not like furious and ready to graduate, that they enjoy working there, I'm going to listen to my friends.
Yeah.
You know?
And just to make it clear, because I feel like I almost kind of feel like
we got to say this multiple
times.
Like
a teacher or a mom, just kind of have to like reiterate. This is not us wishing the worst for Selen as Dokiber. I want her to succeed as well. I think she is going to do amazing as an indie.
Yeah.
I just don't think she was the right fit for an agency.
No, I don't think so. And like I said, two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
She could have really not worked in Nijisanji. You know, she was not a good fit, right? Like, in that she was, you know, like, not a good fit for any corporation, right? But then at the same time, like, Niji can still make mistakes as well. They both can make mistakes. And that's the nuanced take that I think people want it to be black and white so bad. Like, this isn't Pokemon. This isn't Pokemon Black and White. This is this is real life. Because real life is nuanced all the time.
It is. There's a lot of gray areas, and there's definitely a lot in this this scenario.
I would say like there's a lot. It's a lot of grays, and being people who are older, we're not old, but we're older. We do have life experience, and I feel like life experience comes with nuance.
It does.
You know, because you'll see something like that's like, oh, that's bad. You know, like.
Well, I feel like it's our life experience that is allowing us to kind of play devil's advocate in a way, but also just be realistic. Because, I mean, there's a reason why if you study business, and if you're a language major at a university, you do have to take courses in the country that you're majoring in. If you're going into Japanese language and you want to be in business with Japanese, like, there are specific courses specifically about Japanese business. I majored in French, so I took years of French business classes because, again, like, the way the French handle business, way different to America. And that is common knowledge that I feel like people are just not understanding.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just so funny because, like, kind of a little off topic though. I mean, it just kind of go away from Niji a little bit, but
Mhm.
You know, I've been a big fan of Hazbin Hotel, which has a lot of controversy around it constantly. But my
Mhm.
favorite thing was I talked about this on my side account. If you guys don't know, I have a side account where I talk about more fandom stuff and I post stuff and about, you know, like it's more personal. You know,
Mhm.
if you want to go follow it, Stella Luna's Room is what it's called. But there was a tweet that I saw and it had to do with Hazbin Hotel, and it was like some minor who probably should have not even been talking about Hazbin. Anyways, they don't even like it. They even said that. They're like, I don't like it. I've never even watched it, which I'm like, why do you have an opinion in the fucking first place?
That's
You
how I
fucking
feel about
fuck.
like people that don't watch VTubers and are commenting on this, like not knowing a single damn thing. It's like, why?
Like,
If you
why?
don't like VTubers, like stay out of this.
Yeah, stay out of it. Like you don't know. But anyways,
Yeah.
so this kid got mad because they're like, why is Adam white? And I'm like because so Adam in the show is like the first man Adam, or as he calls himself, the first dick, Adam. And there were people who were upset that he was white because, you know, the Bible and Christianity, like Catholicism, really comes from the Middle East, right? So a lot of these people in the Bible would be Middle Eastern, probably brown, right? And not a white person, right? But like it's so funny because they got so upset about it and they hadn't even watched the show. And it's like there are two reasons why this character is white. It's first of all, he just looks like his voice actor, Alex Brightman. You know, the guy, he was Beetlejuice on in Beetlejuice musical. That's who he was. He was like the OG like Beetlejuice. The other thing is that the show very much like kind of like is a I don't know, it's not like political or anything, but it like I feel like Adam being white makes sense because like he kind of stands for white Christianity and Catholicism. Like how it's been whitewashed, right? Because Adam is a fucking dick. He's a dick, he's misogynistic, he is like he is you know, he is privileged, he's all of these things, very like white Christian man like thing going on, right? And I'm like I was like that's the point. He's like he represents all of that stuff, you know, like he's God's favorite. So, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, it's like you have to watch something or be a part of it to understand the nuances and things. You know?
Yeah, and that comes with life experience.
And that comes with some life experience, also some media literacy, but you know.
Yeah, that too.
You know, don't comment on things you've never watched or seen or whatever. Like I've literally all the time I'm like, hey, I don't like that thing, so I'm not gonna watch or comment on it because I'm like, I don't care enough to, you know. But yeah, I think that is pretty much all we needed to say. We've been talking about Niji basically for the entire hour. We were only going to talk about it a little bit, but
yeah.
And then it turned into the whole thing. But we do have exciting news for next week.
Yeah, I honestly I feel like the last few episodes have been really intense, but I'm very much looking forward to next week's episode.
Yeah, next week's episode, because we got a special guest.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Do you want to reveal who our secret guest is next week? Not secret, I guess.
Actually, we have people guess in the. Honestly, we have spoken about her.
We have spoken
in a recent episode, actually.
Yeah, we did speak about her in a recent episode. And that's really exciting. I feel like we should probably say it so then people are ready for it next week, so they don't miss it. You know, if they're listening now and they don't miss maybe our tweet. If you guys don't follow us on social media, I'm gonna come after you. I'm gonna come for your kneecaps in the middle of the night when you're sleeping.
Now we're on Threads. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Twitter.
Blue Sky.
I to call it X.
I like Blue Sky, actually. I really want Blue Sky to succeed. It's so good.
We'll see if it does.
But next week's guest, we're going to have the one, the only Barry, the J-pop Kaigai idol that we talked about
so
on our podcast a few weeks ago. Barry, the one who was in Sorbet and who got harassed a lot. We're gonna have her on, and I'm really excited. I was surprised she even said yes, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I was so surprised because look, okay, you have to understand. Right?
Stella messaged her.
I messaged her, right? I got balls.
Yes,
I got balls of steel, okay, when I message people. Even though I'm like, oh my God, what if I message them and they see the message and they hate me? And I'm like, well, that sucks. But you know what? It's fine. I'm going to do it anyways, right? But, you know, like, it's always sensitive, right? Like, it's sometimes, like, especially when it's someone who has, like, what Barry went through, you know, like, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just, like, setting her up or anything. We're not setting her up. Because like I know that would be a fear of mine, to be like, oh my God, I'm being set up right now, and that's not what
honestly,
we want to do.
As someone who was set up, I mean, Stella, you
yes, I remember
on
that.
TikTok.
Oh my God, you were set up. I do remember
like,
that.
The last thing I would want to do is put someone in that same position.
Oh my God, I was so pissed, man.
Honestly, like, it's been almost like 2 years, and it's still, whole situation still pisses me off.
No, it was so bad. It was so bad, because like, if you guys were there, if you guys are a longtime Lauda enjoyer, you would know the situation that we're talking about. I don't want to like bring up old tea or whatever.
No, like, honestly, I can say it, because
if you want to talk about it, you go ahead.
What it boiled down to was a conversation about demographics. And the only thing I said was, demographics exist for a reason. A child should not read something as graphic as Berserk. I don't care how mature they think they are, but demographics exist for a reason. They exist in American publishing. Yes. They exist for American media. If something is rated, you know, for adults, it is not meant for children.
Here's the thing.
That is pretty much it.
You said that it was but it was a stitch to another guy's video talking about how he thought it was okay, and that there's a lot of teenagers who are mature for their age, right? Yeah. And basically it turned into this wild rhetoric, or not wild rhetoric, but it's wild like roller coaster of like I do think like the guy was trying to be like nice, and that he didn't mean any ill intent by it, but people pointed out, like, when you tell a teenager that they're mature for their age, a lot of times that is like a huge red flag for a lot of people, because a lot of predators will use that line, right? I don't think he meant anything by it, because
no, I don't think so either,
right? But people were pointing out, like, there's a reason there's like age like restrictions on it, right? Because it doesn't matter if you can handle it or not. Are you mature enough to take that media and not be able to do something stupid because of it too? Yeah. Right? I mean, like, we literally see all the time, like, there's been so many cases of like kids who like, what? There was like the two girls who tried to kill the other girl they were all 12 for Slender Man. I mean, like, stuff like that, right? Where it's like insane that they did that. Or like, I know, like, in like, there was a case in like Pocatello, Idaho, where like these two kids, like two teenage boys, loved Scream, and so they tried to murder someone Scream style, essentially, and be like this, and they recorded themselves like dumbasses, right? Talking about it. But it's like these, like, it's not a matter of like whether or not like you can handle it as it is. Are you not going to say anything stupid, or do you have the media literacy
like,
to
digest
it?
It should not be a hot take to just encourage an audience to maybe just be patient and wait until you have more life experience and more media literacy before you consume something.
Don't be cosplaying Angel Dust at 16, please. Stop it. Yeah. Stop it. It was so wild too. It's like, okay, I saw this and this, oh my God. Because I don't even know. I don't remember what we talk about these podcasts anymore. Like, I'm like, did I mention this? I mean,
we're like episode, 24?
Yeah, like, look, sometimes I'm going to repeat myself sometimes, okay? I forget I have ADHD. I'm sorry. But there's a huge conversation right now about like whether or not minors should be cosplaying Angel Dust, the porn star from Hazbin Hotel, right? Oh, and of course minors are like, but if I'm not doing anything sexual, I think it's fine. And it's like, Oh my God. And then I literally saw this, right? Because there's a bunch of arguments going on. And someone was like, okay, if you can cosplay Angel Dust, then cosplay Mia Khalifa, right? And then someone's like, don't be fucking weird. You're gross for that, you pedophile. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the same goddamn thing. Oh, I couldn't. I was like, that's literally what you're saying. If you say that you can, and a minor can cosplay Angel Dust, then it's like it's the same thing as saying you should cosplay Mia Khalifa. They are both porn stars, whether one is fictional or not. Like, what the fuck? Sorry, that makes me so mad. It was like, it would just blew my mind. I just, what were we talking about again? What were we on? Oh, we were talking about the one guy. Yeah, the one guy.
Not setting up
setting up Barry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have been in that situation, and honestly, it doesn't feel good.
No.
At all.
No, because it was like nobody wanted to actually listen. They just wanted to make you look stupid.
Yeah.
And it was like,
so that's the last thing I would want someone else to like feel.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly like how, I don't want to make anyone feel like that on the podcast or,
honestly, and it's like part of the reason why I can sympathize in a way with both Doki Bird as well as the Niji livers. Like, I experience a fraction of the hate that they're both receiving.
Yes.
And it's just, take the fact that they're entertainers online out of this equation. They're still regular people.
Absolutely.
Who are gonna get overwhelmed with emotions, who are gonna feel stressed. Even the people working for Nijisanji are not heartless people. Like I mentioned in last week's episode, for all we know, they might be young adults in their first corporate space.
Yes.
They messed up big time.
Yeah. That's a good point too. A lot of like in VTubing especially, like there's a huge chunk of people who were very young, and then there's also a huge chunk of people who are very old as well. Like I think most of the VTubers that I personally am friends with and know, they're all in their 30s, like late 20s, early 30s, even up to I know a few that are in their 40s now, right? Like it's very common, but it's also very common for really young people to get into the space and then be like shocked when things are not the way they seem like it seems, or they mess up. And, that's what it feels like a lot of people who like have trouble are very young versus the people who just kind of graduate and move on are much older.
Yeah.
And that's another thing to take into account is that, like, I'm not going to lie, a lot of young people they do not want to be told they're wrong. I know I didn't like to be told I was wrong when I was younger. And that's not a knock at younger people. I think we, like, a lot of everyone when they were in their like very early 20s, maybe even late teens, we were all like, you can't tell me what to do, stick to the man. I'm not wrong, you're wrong. It's a very common thing, but
we're excited for Barry's interview. I would love to hear like the listeners' feedback if they want us to cover a certain topic.
Yes.
Maybe they're interested in like us interviewing someone else. Like, you can always let us know. We'll take it into consideration.
Yeah, let us know, tag them maybe if you're like, I would love to have this person on as a guest. Right? Like tag them so then maybe we know, and then we can also reach out as well too, Also, if you guys have any questions for Barry as well too, because I know we're going to be coming up with some probably after we end the podcast here, but if you guys have any questions too, like make sure that you leave some questions, and we'll probably be looking at them probably till probably about Wednesday or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah. So Wednesday, Thursday, and but I think that's all we gotta talk about.
Yeah,
I
think so too. I think that's like, I feel like the last thing we're probably going to comment on the whole Niji thing.
Yeah, that's the last thing. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm so done talking about it. I'm done
talking about it too. Like, I hope things get resolved
I just want people
And
to move on. I just wanted to clarify things and like talk about a little bit more now that we had a little more insight on situations. Like, you know, like to kind of like follow up. But I really don't want to talk about it much anymore. And I just want my friends to succeed. That's all I want.
Yeah, like I want them to succeed. I want Doki to succeed as an indie. Like people can just move on and keep creating content the way they want to. So
yeah. And here's the thing too. Here's the thing too. She's just fine. You don't need to attack Niji. She's doing just fine on her own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I said, she's doing just fine. She's literally like she's doing.
She has like 500,000 subscribers though. It's insane, but I mean, good for her.
Yeah, good
she
for her.
She built that community, and her community did follow her. I just hope that they can actually listen and not harass other people.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next week for a good time. Oh, what is happening over here?
My dog finally woke up from his nap.
Oh, I see. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Follow us on Shojo Podcast on everything.
Yes.
And follow us too, Stella Luna and
Loud and Yusuf.
Yep. All right, goodbye everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.